Hi BookTube, Sarah here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my March 2020 wrap-up and stats. I know, a little bit late. It's, like the first full week of April, but let's be honest, I think a lot of us are feeling this with a lot of people working from home or being off of work and everything that's going on in the world right now. I have no idea from one day to the other what day it is. So I apologize for the delay in getting this video out, but better late than never, so let's jump in and get started. So the way that I usually work my wrap-ups is that I go through all of my stats. I love stats. I love keeping track of my stats. I use the Let's Read spreadsheet from Brock that he did, and it is fantastic. It's been around for years and years, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. And I use that to kind of generate my stats, and I do like sharing them with you guys month to month. So I'll go through that. I'll go through any other challenges that I did over the course of the month, and then I, of course, will end on what my top 5 books of the month were. So, starting with stats. I read a total of 23 books in the month of March. I am so pleased with that. Best month so far this year. I know we're only 3 months in, but I have a feeling that April will also, I might even do better in April because I am still off of work and I'm getting a lot of reading done, which is great. And yeah, I'm super stoked about that. So for my Goodreads goal, this was as of the 31st of March. So I did take note of it when I added my last book for March at what my Goodreads goal, what it looked like. And I was 1 book ahead of schedule, so I have read, as of, again, the 31st of March, 60 out of the 240 books that I had as my goal, which is 25%. So into my star ratings, I had 3 3-star books, 8 3.5-star books, 5 4-star books, 5 4.5-star books, and this one surprised me, 3 5-star books. You guys know I tend to be a little stingy when it comes to 5-star reads, but I had 3 of them in the month of March, so that's fantastic. For the category breakdown for, what genres and such that I read 7 contemporary romance, as I always like to say, no surprise there, 3 thrillers, 2 cozy mysteries, 2 middle grade fiction novels, 2 mysteries, 2 romantic suspense, 1 historical fiction, 1 historical romance, 1 inspirational romantic suspense, 1 paranormal romance, and 1 YA contemporary novel. I read from the Harlequin imprints. As you can see, I have my Harlequin shelf behind me. I do like to keep track of how many of the imprints that I read every month. And I read 2 of the romantic suspense and 1 of the presents novels. For the age group, for the novels that I read 18 books geared towards an adult audience. I read 3 YA and 2 middle grade. For publication year or decades or what have you, 1 book from the 1930s, 2 books from the 1980s, 1 from the 1990s, 1 from the 2000s, 12 books published between 2010 and 2019, and 7 books published this year in 2020. That stat was pretty awesome. I like that one a lot. I read 12 ebooks in format. I read 12 ebooks, 9 on audio, and 2 mass market paperbacks. All 23 of the books that I read in March were full-length novels. Of all the books that I read, 15 of them were part of a series and 8 were standalone. 8? Yes, 8 were standalone. I like series, but this one is much better. Of those 15 that were part of a series, 13 were part of ongoing series and only 2 were new series that I started. Yay for me, pat on the back. I like to start all the series. I read a grand total of 6,493 pages in March, an average of 209 pages per day, which is not too shabby at all. So, challenges and events for the month of March. I, of course, participated, as I do every year, or as I do every month, I should say, in the Triple RC Challenge, which is the Romance Readers Reading Group on Goodreads. Their monthly challenge. There are 10 prompts. I completed all 10 again this month, which means I have now done it for a grand total of 4 years and 3 months in total. I also participated and was a co-host for March Mystery Madness, which was created by Elizabeth over at Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I was a co-host again. I was a co-host last year as well, and there were 8 prompts for this, and I completed all 8. And so yeah, so I'm really, really pleased with that. It's a really fun event every year, and I really enjoy participating in it because as much as I love romance, you guys know that, I also really do love a good mystery, a good thriller, but you know, part and parcel with that, a great romantic suspense, in my opinion, definitely fits in the mystery category as well. So, as I said, as I like to end off on these videos, my top 5 books of the month. And I like to go from my least most favorite to my most favorite. So, coming in spot number 5 was The Breakup by Tilly Tennant. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I loved this book. I talked about it in a recent vlog, I believe, because I read it more towards the end of the month. This was a new release that had just been published in March of this year. Excuse me. It was originally called A Cat Called Cupid, but they renamed it to The Breakup. It's about a woman who at the very beginning of the novel gets broken up with by her boyfriend, and she gets home and she's upset and there's a storm, and then there's this cat outside. So she lets the cat in. And the cat, you know, they fast forward a year, and the cat's been living with her for a year, but he's an outdoor cat, and he often takes off for a couple days at a time, and she worries, so she goes out searching for him, but he always comes back. Well, it turns out the cat actually has 2 homes. There's somebody else a few streets over who also has the cat, and the cat kind of alternates between their houses. And then, of course, there's a relationship between the 2 humans, and it was delightful. If you are a cat lover, you need to read this one. It was such a cute contemporary romance. Takes place in the UK. It was absolutely delightful, and I highly, highly recommend it. The next one that is on the list, coming in at spot number 4, is Almost Just Friends by Jill Shalvis. I gave this one 4.5 stars as well. I loved this so much. This is, I think, the 4th book in the Wildstone series by Jill Shalvis. This is more of a women's fiction as opposed to a contemporary romance novel. And it is about a woman, who lives in this small town of Wildstone, which I think is in Northern California, if I'm remembering correctly. And story starts off, it's her birthday, and, you know, she's, I believe, an EMT, and she's kind of been looking after her siblings what feels like her whole life. Her parents were killed when she was quite young. So she being the oldest of the 3 siblings, she's kind of had to watch over them and things like that. And now finally they're older and she's about to move on and do something, and because they have moved on, and now they're both back home with their own problems, and she now feels the need to fix or help fix. And of course there is a romance in there with the new guy who has moved in next door to look after his older and ailing father. It is delightful. It is such a cute story, and it's such a great series. If you've read Jill Shalvis, and I know I was talking to Lindsay over at Lindsay Reads about this, that she read one of the books in the Heartbreaker Bay series, and it wasn't her cup of tea, mainly because of the amount of adult content, which I get, and I totally understand that. I recommend that you check out the Wildstone series because Jill Shalvis is a great author. She does great characters, great humor in her stories, but if you want to take the adult content down a notch, this is definitely the series that you need to check out. Number 3 on my list was a middle grade fiction novel because it was middle grade March. And I always think about it, you know, at the tail end of February or even the beginning of March. I remember, oh my gosh, yes, it's middle grade March. I mean, I see the videos come up, but they just don't register in my brain for some reason. So next year, I've really got to try and make it a point, maybe make a reminder in my calendar for mid-February for when I'm picking my TBR for next March to include some more middle grade books. I do read the Back to My Childhood books. I'm rereading through the Babysitter's Club, and those are considered to be middle grade fiction. But like the Sweet Valley High and the Nancy Drew, those are not. But I did get one extra middle grade book in here. Like I read a Babysitter's Club, but I also got this one in. And I am so glad I read this book. It was fantastic. And that was The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise by Dan Gimmenhart, I believe. This was one of my 5-star reads, you guys. Oh my gosh, it was good. It's about a young girl. I think she's 12 or 13 years old. And several years earlier, her mom and sisters were killed in a car accident. And her father obviously did not handle it very well. He packed him and Coyote up and he bought a old school bus that he converted kind of into a home on wheels. There's no bathroom in it, but they have like places to sleep and things like that. and they have literally been crisscrossing the country for the past 3 or 4 years. And she talks to her grandmother every Sunday and finds out that the park where, when her mom and sisters were alive, they buried a memory box, and the park is about to be paved over. So Coyote's trying to now figure out how to convince her dad to drive back home without him knowing that that's where they're going, because he has vowed never to go back home again. So good. Highly recommend it. It is a great middle grade fiction novel. I laughed, I cried, like, no joke. This book will bring you to tears. It was absolutely delightful. Sorry about that. Book number 2 would be Heidi's Guide to Four-Letter Words by Tara Civic and Andy Arndt. This one was delightful. This was originally produced as an Audible original, so it was only available on audio. There wasn't even, at the beginning, originally when it was published, an ebook version. I have checked, and there is now an ebook version, but honestly, if you are going to read this book, it needs to be done via audio. It is, this book, I mean, clearly was made to be an audiobook. And, you know, just do yourself a favor. I believe it's part of the Audible Escape package, and listen to it. So it's about a woman named Heidi who is very shy, very quiet. She is a kindergarten teacher, and at the very beginning of the book, she has just lost her job due to budget cuts. So she has a very, you know, a mother who's wants to be very involved in her life, mother and father. And Heidi is in love with her next door neighbor, but she is afraid to tell him because, of course, she's so shy and she doesn't know how to put herself out there and, you know, be that kind of woman. Her and her mother love romance novels, but what they stick to tends to be Amish romance. So you can just kind of imagine, you know, the kind of personality that Heidi has. And she's sweet and adorable, and I loved her to death. So she ends up getting this new job at a company that actually produces audiobooks. And they are very, very, very adult audiobooks. They are, you know, well above anything, and she's very embarrassed. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. She doesn't want to tell her mother. This is where she's working. She's absolutely shocked when she starts listening to some of these things that are being produced. So she decides one night after drinking a box of wine to start recording a podcast. And it's, what was it called again? Heidi's Discount Erotica podcast, where, to get herself out of her shell, she would read passages from very erotic romance novels. And it is hysterical. And that's all I'm going to tell you about the story. It's not very long on audio. I think it comes in at under 6 hours. But it was written by both Tara Civic and Andy Arndt. But Andy Arndt narrates it. She is one of my favorite narrators. She does a brilliant job narrating the mother. This takes place in Minnesota, and the accents were spot on. It was so good. I really love this book. It was so much fun. It was such an easy read, such a delightful read. There were parts of it that had me laughing out loud. There's this one scene where she's trying to, of course, bring herself out of her shell by even saying certain four-letter words makes her blush, right? So she decides that she's going to go through the entire alphabet, and for every letter of the alphabet, try and name a dirty word to go with it. It was hysterically funny. I loved it, absolutely recommend it. I saw one of my friends on Facebook, I guess after seeing I had read it, is reading it, and she said she's really enjoying it, especially right now with everything going on and the fear and the uncertainty in the world. This is the kind of book you need, something to completely take you out of reality and, you know, get into. Now, do keep in mind, from everything that I've said, there are some very dirty passages in this book. Stuff that I was like, oh my. And I have listened to my fair share of dirty books, if you will. And I am contemplating on letting my mom borrow this one to listen to. And I'm thinking, I don't know how some of the scenes would go, but overall, it's not necessarily an erotic novel. There's just little parts that are in there. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense, but it does. I wouldn't consider this to be an erotic novel, but that's just me. And my favorite book of the month, this one, I had a tough time deciding which one I actually loved more, but I did have to give it to this one, and that was The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. This book also, of course, got 5 stars. It was my favorite book this month. I loved it so much. This is the story about 2 people who are assistants to this married couple who have a home and design show. If you think like HGTV, you think of, there's some shows, I don't watch HGTV, but there are, I believe there's a husband and wife couple, and, you know, so you think, you know, you watch this show and you think, oh, this couple is so adorable. They've been married for so long. Look how cute they are, putting these houses together and doing this, that, and the other thing. But behind the scenes in this book, they can't stand each other. So they're now going on a book tour. So our two main characters are kind of tasked with keeping them from killing each other, essentially. And of course, a romance blossoms between the two of them. This was so, so good. I mean, I love Christina Lauren's writing. I love their characters. They are fantastic. You know, from all of the Christina Lauren novels that I have read, there's only been one, and it was the last one, Twice in a Blue Moon, that I didn't absolutely, that I didn't absolutely love. But this one I would put up there on par with The Unhoneymooners. That was my favorite book that I read last year. This one was just as good. I loved it. And it was a new release as of last month, so I highly recommend that you go ahead and check it out. So anyway, guys, that is all that I have for today's video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below, what was your favorite book that you read in the month of March? And until my next video, everybody, take care and happy reading. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.